So this is the second video of using psychic warfare to defeat aging, which continues on from the 15 videos I did with Gridkeeper on C space and H space used for healing. And we're going to look at approaches to use psychic warfare research to retard aging and combat disease. Now, if we start with the cell, you've got a cell membrane, and inside the cell membrane you've got mitochondria and Golgi apparatus and ribosomes and the cytoplasm, which has loads of stuff in that for signal cell transduction, and inside that you've got a nucleus. And if you go back to Russian psychic warfare research, they discovered that the membrane gave off a energy field they called bioplasm. And when they had a leaf which they cut in half and put on charged plates with 100,000 volts, they actually got a discharge of photons which they could record on a photographic plate to produce something called Chilean photography. And that even when the leaf was cut in half, half of it, which was supposed to be gone, still had a discharge, a Chilean photography energy footprint, which lasted about 3 days before it died away. So this indicates around a cell there is an energy field that is associated with the actual physical matter, and that this energy field might be associated with switching on and off the DNA, which doesn't change, of course, throughout your lifetime, unless, of course, you stick in viruses or plasmids to actually add DNA or take away DNA, or use the CRISPR technology, which can edit your DNA. So it seems that the energy field is to do with epigenetics, the reading of the DNA. So epigenetics can be seen as the mechanism by which the blueprint of DNA is read to produce varying cells from the same blueprint. Skin cells, heart cells, nerve cells, liver cells, and immune cells, blood cells, kidney cells. All of these have the same blueprint, but they are different in their phenotype because, of course, it has a different phenotype. Phenotype is caused by epigenetics, switching genes on and off, which we'll discuss way later because it's quite an involved subject, and we want to go through all aspects of epigenetics so that you can control your own DNA reading. Why? Well, think about it. Your cells have more and more tags, according to research, which ages you, so that the rapid onset aging which humans suffer from is due to epigenetic effects, not DNA effects. It's not that you're being zapped with Chernobyl levels of radiation or Fukushima levels of radiation, unless you're Ukrainian or Japanese or people going to the Olympics. No, it's that the reading of the DNA is changed, and as we see, this is minutely affected by stimuli on the cell membrane, and the epigenetic reproduction is very flawed. So 1 in every 50 epigenetic replications is wrong. And epigenetic tags are passed on from your grandmother to your mother to you, so that the environment that your grandmother and your mother were exposed to defines you, unless of course you can change it. Now, wouldn't it be nice to be able to change what parts of the DNA that you could read? Because remember, if you can fully read DNA, you can rebuild everything in your body. If you've got damaged eyes, or you've got a damaged heart, or you've got cancer, or you've got dementia, or you've got a fucked up body from aging, all of these can be changed if you can read the blueprint and correct it. It's like you go into a wrecked building, but you've got the original blueprints, and you can get a team of builders in to bring it back to how it looked, to restore it. But of course you can't do, because the builders are locked out of the building by a mob of unruly, chaotic vermin which stop them getting there. So epigenetics is quite simple. You would eradicate all the vermin so you can actually read the blueprint and correct yourself, which then of course extends lifespan from the 70 to biblical levels. Now, Russian research found you had the bioplasm around the cell, which came with the cell membrane, but they also found that there was another energy field coming from the nucleus. So in a cell there's the cytoplasm, and in the middle you've got the nucleus with another membrane. And inside they found another energy field, which the Russians called soul fluid. And this energy field is separate from the bioplasm. Now you've got two energy fields, one within the other. Now if you go back to my grid keeper videos, you'll see I was talking about I to the I, 3 space, I is equivalent to a 3 space. And when you have a 3 space within a 3 space, I to the I, this in mathematics produces a real number, so that the soul fluid within the bioplasm produces reality. So the reality of your cell can be seen to be produced from 2 field effects: the soul fluid within the bioplasm. Now, why is it when you're a baby that this mechanism works and you grow and you evolve, and by the time you're becoming mid-20s, you're going downhill? Well, the problem is that these field effects are changed by external forces. So if you look at shamanism, the works of Carlos Castaneda, Don Juan talks about the rolling force, and when you're young you get the positive aspect of the rolling force, and when you're old you get the negative aspect of the rolling force, which changes the fields within your body. Now, as a hard scientist, there has to be the mathematics and physics behind this process of aging. And the eye to the eye, you can see from the mathematics that one eye within another eye gives you a real number, which of course explains that you're adding, building, producing a baby and then growing. Then what turns that into an old hag or an old git from the mid-20s, because from the mid-20s you start to degrade. Well, if there are external fields which you're exposed to, which control this, then they would be affecting the bioplasm and the soul fluid, which are the manifestors of the morphogenetic field. So eye to the eye, soul fluid, bioplasm equals morphogenetic field, which causes your cells to grow and reproduce and divide and make you. And then there's this exterior field which changes it to switch over into destroying you. And if you look at the grid keeper videos again, you'll see taking away from real number is minus eye to the eye, where you simply change the sign on the eye to the eye. Now, the rolling force can be seen as the complex number version of Maxwell's equations. There are 4 of them, and specific to. One of them boosts the bioplasm and the soul fluid, and then the other one, the negative aspect of the rolling force, changes the function. How would it change that? It simply has to switch the sign of the eye to the eye. So we look at what is bioplasm, what is soul fluid. Well, if we look at Theodore Kaluza, 1926, trying to unify general relativity and electromagnetism, he came up with general relativity in 5 dimensions, where gravity is simply in the 5th dimension, light. And the equations produced 10 tensors for normal general relativity, 4 for electromagnetism, which was a 4 vector, and a scalar field, which could be positive or negative, space-like or time-like. So one can think of the bioplasm and soul fluid as being both positive, with the positive rolling force, but when the negative rolling force comes into being, when it switches over, the soul fluid, which of course is linked up with time-like phenomena, gets into its negative phase, and you get then minus eye to the eye, which causes, instead of growth, deletion from the energy field. And as the energy field starts to take away from the morphogenetic field, you start to age. Now, a simple way around that, since we're going through every single facet of having to defeat aging, is to have some psychotronic generators. What's a psychotronic generator? A psychotronic generator is something that absorbs energy fields. And in this case, you've got a positive torsion field generator that sucks up bioplasm and also sucks up the space-like version of soul fluid. Similarly, you've got the negative torsion field psychotronic generator. Negative torsion fields, think of it as a vortex that goes in, collects the counterclockwise torsion field, which is destructive, and the inverse, going inwards, clockwise, torsion field. So think of having a torsion field vortex that's going out clockwise and anti-clockwise, and here inwards, counterclockwise and clockwise. And one can see that the cell receptors on the surface are responding to I to the I, minus I to the I, torsion fields, and scalar fields. So that if you're a psychic warfare adept who wants to influence the receptors to cure you of cancer, cure you of dementia, cure you of any disease, which the cell is well capable of doing, rebuilding any damage, and keeping in the cancer state without going cancerous, which means being immortal, is all dependent upon controlling the cell signal transduction, because the blueprint doesn't change. The blueprint in a cancer cell is identical to a blueprint in a healthy cell. The blueprint in a diseased cell is similar, well, identical, unless it's been heavily irradiated or affected by a virus, to that in a normal cell. The difference is the epigenetics, which is controlled by signal cell transduction. So approaches to control signal cell transduction are the scientific approach to controlling epigenetics and defeating aging, and all the diseases are associated with aging, which is the prime disease. Now, if you think of it, you've got a ligand coming down, hitting the receptor on the cell membrane. This is a protein. Now, as you can see, when it comes in, negative torsion field. So, if you want that, negative torsion field, tick the box. Next, you're getting, this ligand is a 3-space I. The receptors are 3-space, coming together. I to the I. Let's tick another box. And similarly, scalar, the scalar field. You've got the ligand coming in. Do we want a positive or negative scalar field to be applied to the ligand? Because remember, all of this is being done by the observer. So if we can clear our observer, which means clearing the subconscious, which is, think of the conscious, subconscious iceberg, which we talked about, then you can start applying this, and we'll see why simple quartz crystals are mandatory for this technology in the future. Going back to scalar, positive scalar, coming into, we want a positive scalar on the ligand, and we want a positive scalar on the cell receptor, so we get I to the I, which is increasing. So as you can see with the observer, you've got your tick box, tick, 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 tick. You know the things you need to do to get the ligand to bind. So the next thing is, how do we clear that subconscious? Well, of course, you can join Scientology, which is the only group on the planet that spends all their time getting someone to go over their past with someone going through their subconscious to produce a clear. And it's no coincidence that all of the CIA remote viewers, the top ones, led by Inigo Swan, were high-level Scientologists who'd been cleared at their subconscious, hacked to edit out all of the defects produced by birth, parenthood, authority, schools. So it is a good idea, if you're a Scientologist, to add this to what you already know. I, of course, don't need Scientology because I had massive brain damage, which, of course, meant that I had to reboot all my neural networks and didn't need to be cleared. But for the population, you need a mechanism to clear your subconscious. Because it doesn't matter what your conscious mind goes, oh yeah, I'm going to start using Tim Rifat techniques to control signal cell transduction, because I know minute effects on the cell will be able to get me to get the cell to boost tumour suppressor genes, switch off oncogenes, so I'm immune to cancer. Or will allow me to click on the genes for healthy heart function, or click on the genes for healthy brain function, or click on the genes to eliminate diabetes, because diabetes, of course, is caused by microwave EMF 5G. It raises blood sugar levels. So if you buy a base station, massively raised. And we know that 1 in 3 people will get diabetes, and 1 in 2 Hispanic females will get diabetes, which leads to renal failure and dialysis and amputations. All of this can be eliminated by controlling your epigenetic programming. And of course, it then makes you highly resistant to 5G, 4G, poisons, toxins, stresses. Like the British government's been desperately trying to microwave me since 1996 with no effect, so they had to go to thermal levels to try and cook me. It's a bit of a steel bunker, so you can hardly cook someone in a steel room when the steel blocks the microwave beams. Low levels of microwave, which should have caused me to die of cancer or other diseases, didn't work because I control my epigenetic programming. So they have to literally cook me alive in order to cause any effects. While a normal person, cancer, heart attack, dementia, diabetes, which are proven effects of the microwave network and the new millimeter wave network, which we call 5G. So one can see that it isn't that psychic warfare is something that some other people do and has no real use for me. It's life and death for you, because with 5G, 4G, you're going to die horribly from horrible diseases, cancer, diabetes, heart attack, dementia, premature aging. It's going to happen. All of the networks around you are designed to do that, and controlling your epigenetic genome, your phenotype, means that you become highly resistant, and the British, who are the leaders in killing people with this technology, will then have to use thermal effects, high power microwave, to literally cook you alive to get any health problems. Which must be good, because remember, you're going to be bathed in 5G millimeter wave, and you're bathed in 4G already, which is the microwave network. So it's a must-have. Similarly, if you control your blueprint, you become highly resistant to cancer, all other diseases. And let's look at the lifespan. What's the lifespan of a human? We don't know, because remember, if you could perfectly read the blueprint, your lifespan would be higher. Let's look at a guess. If the epigenetic error rate is 1 in 50, and the DNA error rate is 1 in 500 million, that's 1 over 5 times 10 to the 1 compared to 1 times 5 times 10 to the 8th. So there is a millionfold difference in error rates. If aging is proportional to error rate, potentially, if you had perfect blueprint reading, your lifespan would be increased from 70 to 70 million years, which sounds mad, does it not? Completely crazy. Mad. But looking at epigenetics, if epigenetics causes disease and aging, and the error rate's about 1 in 50, and the DNA error rate's 1 in 500 million, the difference is a millionfold. Well, let's look at that again. 5 times 10 to the 1, 1 over 500 million, that's 500 million. So we've underestimated, because 500 million is 5 times 10 to the 8th, compared to 5 times 10 to the 1. So it's even larger, 10 to the 7th, 10 million. So there's an enormous difference in potential aging if we can eliminate epigenetics and the epigenetic errors. And the only way to eliminate epigenetic errors is to actively take hold of them and manipulate them. Now, if you look at epigenetics, it's immensely complicated. So even if you could somehow edit the subconscious to produce a subconscious that didn't want to kill you, you would then need to augment the subconscious to have the processing power of an AI to control every signal cell transduction, block the bad ones, allow the good ones, modify the good ones to whatever levels needed in order to read the blueprint in the correct way. So we would then need to connect a human who's had their subconscious cleared, a perfect Scientologist, with AI. This, of course, is possible because the brain produces bioplasmic field and soul fluid field effect, which can then, of course, be quantum superimposed on a quantum computer. So you don't need electrodes buried in your brain and nano filaments and all the rest in your brain to connect with AIs. If you have a suitably cleared, Scientology terms, subconscious merged with the conscious to link with AIs, then of course you would then be able to, using torsion, scalar fields, and eye to the eye, linked with observation, which collapses the quantum wave function, to control the ligand signal receptor bonding. So if you didn't like the ligand that was coming your way, be it from aspartame or some horrible poison in a vaccine, or some Monsanto nightmare genetic cocktail in their gene edited, manipulated foods, or poison particles in smog, or organic solvent chemicals in vaping, which give you popcorn lung, you could then, of course, make sure that when the ligand comes, the negative one, to hit the cell receptor and start that chain reaction, which can be a billionfold, to get your DNA to produce poison cells which kill you, you could actually block it, which is minus I to the I, or a positive torsion field, which would push it away. Or if it's I to the I, and it does actually meet, you turn one of them with the scalar into a time-like scalar, which is get minus I to the I. So even though it matches, if you put minus scalar into the cell receptor, it blocks it. Whole variety of ways of doing it, all controlled by AI 24/7 in the quantum realm, quantum computer, to produce a super soldier body. Wouldn't this be nice? Wouldn't this be possible if a super genius came along and merged with an AI to enable this? Oh, wouldn't that be good? And why, of course, would we want crystals? These bits of, crystal. This one's been in Sellafield to get the negative torsion field from the nuclear radiation. Well, when you get a crystal and you interact with it, you get the piezoelectric effects producing a spark, which links you up to the fifth dimension. And think of this as having a 2-vector. All inanimate objects, according to the shamans, are capsules. From a scientific point of view, you've got a time-like vector and a space-like vector. And you can bring them into the center, bring your own 4-vector. Yeah. So you can bring the vectors associated with a crystal, which is a capsule, got no assemblage point, time-like, the time vector and the scalar vector into the center, link up with the 4-vector inside you, into the center, to merge the crystal with you, where your assemblage point on the shoulder merges with the crystal, which then, of course, automatically gives you the piezoelectric effect, lifting you into the fifth dimension. And the crystal can have a torsion field inputted into it, which actively acts as a battery to suck out bioplasm and soul fluid from whatever it's programmed to suck out. Similarly, this crystal can have a negative torsion field. It's got a time vector, scalar vector, bring them into the center, to merge with the human who's got a 4-vector, bring it into the center, merge it, to wed that crystal to you, which then gives you the capability to link up to the fifth dimension with negative torsion fields, either clockwise or anti-clockwise. This then, of course, can be used for manipulation of cell signal transduction to control your epigenetic phenotype, which, as we've explained, is vital for aging control and to control disease. So how do we start? You can simply, using Colin Bloy's methodology, call up the archetype of a cell. There we are. Cytoplasm, nucleus, This is a cell from the mould of man for all humans. So if you're powerful enough, you can actually reprogram the cells of humanity and their cell signal receptors globally to do what you want. That, of course, is another story for other workshops where people want to learn how to use psychic warfare on other people, like A-listers and billionaires, in order to, instead of making yourself young, fit, and immune to, or highly resistant to external negative stimuli, you do the opposite in order to rapidly age billionaires, give them cancer, heart attacks, dementia, madness, and all the other horrors that we see, which of course is psychic warfare directed at targets. Here we're just talking about psychic warfare, which of course should be from the get-go directed at yourself to get rid of aging, disease, because it's no good if you use psychic warfare to extort billions using cryptocurrency from billionaires, kill a few billionaires and the rest pay you if you're going to die very quickly from a fucked up epigenetic program. So as you can see, it doesn't matter if you steal, take, extort, whatever you want. Trillions from the elite. Take all their money if you're going to die at 70. Fucking waste of time. So what we're talking about is something that must be done by the same people who want to boost their lifespan before using the same techniques they use to make themselves young and disease-free and reversed, because remember it's a double-edged weapon, on the rich, to make themselves richer, get rid of their enemies, whatever. Because remember, whatever techniques you use on yourself to make yourself healthy and youthful can be reversed to make any target prematurely age and die of disease, like a Cummings or a Bernie Sanders or a Steve Jobs, or a whole multitude of other rich, famous people who've died from disease. Now, if we could put all of this programming in 2 little crystals, which you could have on you to do this, and would directly communicate with your subconscious, then we'd have a winner. But of course, being a scientist, I want to go through all of the processes that are put into the crystals so that you know the processes of signal cell transduction, epigenetics, scalar, torsion, eye to the eye, unifying quantum mechanics and general relativity, the negative rolling force, positive rolling force, Earth's boost, a whole range of things which are associated with staying young and staying healthy, which were the predilection of the old seers who, in Don Juan's books. This, of course, is, according to Wikipedia, pure fraud. According to Wikipedia, anything that doesn't go into the Overton box, which is what's allowed to be discussed, is fraud. If you talk about anything the elite doesn't want to talk about, it's fraud or conspiracy theory or fake news. Why? Because the elite tell you so. So, we're going to talk about something that the elite says is conspiracy theory, fraud, fake news, because it's not in the Overton box, because you simply can't control lifespan and disease, because epigenetic phenomena don't exist. Signal cell transduction doesn't exist. Quantum mechanics doesn't exist. And anyone who says they do is a heretic. We've got to burn them with 5G and 4G. So as you can see, the elite have led themselves down the garden path, where the more mad they get and the more they talk out against anything they don't like, the more they go against their own research, which they funded. And if you look in the Wall Street Journal, getting rid of epigenetic tags increases lifespan. And we've got loads of startup firms getting into senolytics, which are drugs that kill old disease cells. But psychic warfare is designed to kill the cells of people that the US government or other governments have told you to kill. And which of the cells is going to die first in the person that your military commander, being the Stargate program, has told you to kill? Is it going to be the healthy ones in their bodies, or the old ones, which are dying anyway? It's going to be the old ones, which of course then release loads of ligands. I'm dying. This organism's diseased. Get ill, die as well. So as you can see, psychic warfare is, which the Russians and Americans funded, and is now super black in America, is perfect for senolytics, which are methods of killing old cells in your body, which poison you and prematurely age you. And the epigenetic tags, you get loads and loads, all rubbish, carrying them around, which prematurely age you and disease you. You can use psychic warfare not to kill the cell, but to kill the tags. So as you can see, psychic warfare is the beginning for the so-called first born human that will live to 1,000. Not downloaded into a computer, but actually able to control their epigenetics. And as we've seen, the epigenetics have massive error rates, while DNA doesn't. Get rid of the epigenetic error rates, you then get to the DNA error rates, which increase the lifespan to Methuselah and beyond levels. Enjoy.